Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Super 15s. Yes, it's something that everyone is talking about after SANZAAR made their announcement of the format for next year. But let's get past some of the noise and the hype and the emotion, and let's look at some of the things about what this is actually going to mean for us for next season. I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and if you like my stuff, then please do click above in the link for to join my newsletter, or it's down below if you're watching on YouTube. Please do add comments and chat. I do enjoy rugby chat, and this is supposed to be interactive if you are watching this live. So, what did we hear yesterday? Well, we heard that we're going to go from 18 teams down to 15 teams, and we are going to maintain a conference style system. So that was the kind of the high level thing, with the fact that we're going to lose an Australian team and 2 South African teams. So we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out. I've heard the ARU come out and say they're going to make the decision in the next 2 to 3 days, and that basically it comes down to between the Force and the Rebels, which is no big surprise. I think everyone's expecting it to be the Force, partially on commercial reasons, as the Rebels are actually privately owned, but we'll have to wait and see how that one pans out. From South Africa, I've not heard anything yet. Maybe I've just missed it, but we'll just see what happens there. But let's look at the mechanics of the new one and see what it actually means. So we're going to have 120 regular season games plus 3 match finals series. I must admit, I don't know how many games there are this season. I'll be looking into that later, and maybe in a written piece I'll compare that and see what we come down to. But the way that the games are going to be split is we're going to have 8 games in your conference, so home and away against those teams. Currently we have 6, which means more local derbies, which from my point of view can only be a good thing. And that means, so you're going to have more of those. Currently what you have is you have 6 games inside your own conference, 5 against I've now just gone blank, against an Australasian conference, and then 4 against an African conference, because obviously the African conferences are 4 teams, the Australasian conferences are 5 teams each. So that means you have 6 in onshore, as it were, and 9 against overseas opposition. In the new setup, you'll have 8 conference games, and then you'll have 4 against the other 2 conferences. So you'll have 8, as it were, overseas games. So we're going to actually see a reduction in the number of overseas or out of conference games, which is going to be interesting. So that should actually look at maybe slightly reducing maybe the amount of travel, but not by much, I wouldn't have thought. On the travel side of things, the Sunwolves are the ones that are going to be the big winners here. And in fact, they've moved from an African conference to the Australia conference, which will make their travel much easier for 2 reasons. One, it's shorter, but 2, the time zone jumps is going to be much less, and it's the time zones that has a real drain on a body for long haul flights, relatively speaking. So it's going to be good for the Sunwolves. With the Sunwolves with Japan also restructuring its season to give the Sunwolves more of a pre-season rather than more of a pre-season, we should hopefully see an improvement there from Japan, which will help them after they've been having such a bashing recently, but since they've joined really. But they do have the hardest setup of any franchise. Some people would say, well, what about the Jaguars? Well, these Jaguars play all their home games in Argentina. The Sunwolves play half their home games in Singapore, which isn't even in the same country as them, and is further away than most teams' local opposition are. So that's the travel side of things that's here. The other big thing that we're looking at is the finals series. Now, previously when we had Super 15s, we didn't have the quarterfinals from memory, and so this time around we are going to have quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals, and which means that 8 out of the 15 teams are going to qualify for the finals. That's right, more than half of the teams are going to be in the finals, which seems crazy, but I can see why they're doing it. Again, it's to maintain the number of games for the TV and for income. So we'll see that. So basically, it's going to be you're kind of eliminating the worst teams rather than getting the best teams into the finals, if that makes sense. The other part about this is that the three winners will go in. Sorry, let's quick comment there. Why is New Zealand so anti-Australia in all this? Did you see Greg Gowden's piece on ESPN? No, I've not read Greg's piece on this on ESPN for this, but I'll go back and have a read of that. I'm not sure that I'm sure that New Zealand are that anti-Australia. And one of the things that New Zealand needs is a strong Australia, and that trend whilst they always want to win the Bledisloe Cup, they want to win it as from a competitive game. They don't want to be winning in walkovers. It loses interest. I remember 2014. I was able to get a ticket at Eden Park for a Bledisloe Cup game the week before the game. That just blew my mind. It's crazy. We need much more enthusiasm for these games. These tickets should sell out as soon as they go on sale. So it's crazy that New Zealand wouldn't want a strong Australia, from my point of view. Where was I? So at the finals. What this now means is that the three winners of the conferences will go into the finals, plus the next 5 best teams. And it's irrelevant of which conferences they come from. So yes, in theory, and I've not checked out the mechanics of whether they can actually get enough points, in theory a whole conference of teams could all make the finals. The lowest team in the New Zealand or the Australia or the South Africa conference could make the finals, which is another interesting thing. We'll see how that pans out next year. But yeah, all 5 teams could make it through, which is interesting. So everyone has a chance of getting there. The other part of this is that now the season is going back to an 18-week season, plus the 3 weeks for the finals, which makes it 1 more week longer than this year. So I don't know if that means they're going to start a week earlier or finish a week later. We'll have to see how that impacts things as well. At the beginning of the season, it is incredibly hot in places like Japan, and some of the tracks really are quite hard. So we don't really want to be playing on those pitches if you can help it. I think that also applies to a certain degree in South Africa as well. That there's some very hard pitches, and let's hope that doesn't impact on player welfare by starting even earlier in the summer. So those to me are some of the structural changes. So first off is that we'll be playing more games against local derbies, and actually 1 less overseas game, even though we'll be playing 1 more game a season. Over half the teams are making it into the finals, which is a lot, and in theory, so far from what we understand, a whole conference could make it into the finals. And finally, the season is going to be longer still. So is that going to encroach earlier into summer, or is that going to be added to the end of the season? We'll have to see around the mechanics of that side of things as well. One of the interesting things that came out, actually I was going to touch on from the Australian announcement, was that they're hopefully going to use the money to invest more in grassroots, and they said that basically the drain of having 5 Super Rugby franchises was too much on the finances. So if they are going to invest more in grassroots, that'll be a good step for growing the game, encouraging people in Australia. So that's one of the good things from out of it. Obviously it's sad that people will be losing their jobs, and as said in previous pieces, that I think contraction is the wrong way to go, but hey, that's what Super Rugby SANZAAR has decided. Oh, one final thing that was of interest in here for me was the last comment in here. The decision to retain the Sunwolves is linked directly to SANZAAR's strategic plan for the future. That in itself is interesting, as we've never seen a strategic plan. We've never been told what it might be or where Super Rugby is heading. Last year, SANZAAR said they didn't have one, and they paid for Accenture to create a 10-year plan. We've never seen what that 10-year plan looks like, or given an idea as to what the end goal picture could possibly be. So continuing the quote, the potential for growth of the sport in Asia off the back of the establishment of the Sunwolves and the impending Rugby World Cup in 2019 is significant. It remains an obvious focus for the organisation, and the Japanese Super Rugby franchise is key to that strategy. So just because we've contracted this time doesn't mean that SANZAAR isn't still thinking about expansion in the future, especially into Asia. And along with people like Fiji saying they want an extra side, Argentina mentioning they'd like a second side, Don't rule out expansion coming back to Super Rugby. Don't think that we're going to stick at 15 teams forever. This is a short-term measure to get things realigned before they go again. Would be my guess as to where we're heading in the future. Thank you very much for listening. If you've liked this, then please do share, or if you watch on YouTube, give it the old thumbs up. Loving the hearts, that's always good fun to see that you actually like what I'm saying. It's nice to have some positive feedback. And finally, the link in the title is linked to my weekly newsletter. Please do click on that. I will be doing some extra stuff for other sites, so they will be linked to my newsletter, so please do check out that over the coming weeks. And below in my YouTube, please do click on my link there. Again, you can get it there to get onto the newsletter too. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day. It's lovely and sunny here in Auckland, as you can see, and it's time for me to go and cut the grass.